Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Ivankov turns Luffy into a girl, movie. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Let's begin this story. Luffy was lying on the grassy deck of Sunny pouting. Sanji, why can't I eat now? Because lunch will be ready in half an hour. So give me a pre-lunch snack. No? Luffy went back to pouting. Everyone was busy. Usopp was with Frankie making new inventions, Sanji was with Brook in the kitchen, Nami was reading a book in the shade of an umbrella, and Robin and Zoro were in the medical room with Chopper. Robin had almost fallen down the stairs, and in a failed attempt to stop herself, she twisted her ankle. Luckily for her, Zoro caught her, and carried her to the medical room. It's been like 10 minutes already. Why is Zoro still there? Luffy thought to himself. Luffy, who did not like the direction his thoughts were going, chose to go look for ships or islands. Ivan. Luffy yelled, his eyes getting wide, as he saw Ivankov's ship. Everyone. Stop the ship. Luffy roared, and Usopp and Chopper dropped what they were doing to help Luffy pull up the mast. When Ivankov's ship pulled to a stop next to Luffy's, Ivankov wasted no time jumping from her ship and onto Luffy's. Mujiwara boy. I've missed you. Ivan. Luffy hollered, as Ivankov lifted him off of the ground and hugged him. After Sanji realized who was on board and quickly hid himself in the kitchen, Luffy introduced them and dragged him back out, only to learn why Sanji was so much of a pervert when he came back. After a long day of partying, Luffy saw Zoro stagger drunkenly off to the women's quarters, which was where Robin was. When Luffy realized where Zoro was going, she started pouting, and then turned in early. Why do I get so upset when Zoro is with Robin? I should learn to control my emotions, was the last thing he thought before falling asleep. The next morning, Nami and Robin had just gotten into fresh clothes when they heard Usopp scream the word intruder. They rushed as fast as they could to the men's quarters to see Usopp unconscious on the floor, Copper worrying about Usopp. Frankie had fallen out of bed and was trying to get his bearings. Brook and Sanji were behind the girls on their way to the men's room. Then Zoro looked surprised, but had two of his swords out. The thing that surprised Nami the most was that there was a girl in Luffy's bed. She had short raven hair and a red shirt on. She had a bust that she could see even though she was facing away from them, and she had nice curves. After Nami recovered from her shock, she stomped up behind the girl and punched her in the back of the head, and opened her mouth to say something, but was beaten by the new girl. Nami, she yelled, spinning around with shark teeth. What was that for? To say Nami was surprised would be an understatement. There, sitting in Luffy's hammock, was a female Luffy. Her face had changed very little, but her eyes were more feminine, and her facial structure was slightly different. Luffy cocked her head. What? Robin was the first to recover from the shock, and used her powers to close Luffy's vest. Captain San, perhaps you should cover up. Luffy cocked her head again. Why? Take a look at yourself. Luffy lifted her hands lightly, and tilted her head, only to have her eyes widen in shock, before her face turned red with anger and embarrassment. Ivankov. Luffy roared, as she jumped out of her hammock, and ran to the deck. She checked everywhere, the bathroom, the water around them, the medicine room, and after a good hour of searching, Luffy flopped down in the grass face first, only to yelp. Nami, who had kept a close eye on her captain, saw this, and walked over. What happened to Luffy? Luffy lifted herself, and looked down at her breasts, before looking at Nami. These things get in the way. Nami laughed. Let's go get something to eat. Luffy sighed, but nodded anyhow. At breakfast, Luffy plopped down next to Zoro. Normally Zoro would plop down next to Luffy, but Zoro got here first today. Hey Luffy. Zoro greeted me. Luffy sighed heavily, and leaned against Zoro like she always did when she was upset. He patted her on the head, and said it'll be fine. We will find out why Ivankov did this, and make him fix it. Luffy nodded, and sat up, as Sanji gave her a funny look. What? She asked. Sanji shook his head, and went back to cooking. After 30 seconds, Luffy yelled out, Sanji. Food. But instead of Luffy's old male voice, it was female, and Sanji's back went straight. After a few more seconds, Sanji's voice croaked out a no. Zoro watched, as Luffy spoke to Sanji. Even when Luffy was a boy, he gave most of his attention to Sanji, and it upset him. A lot. So instead of letting Luffy pester Sanji, he said, Luffy, let's go ask Usopp and Chopper if they want to play with you. Luffy's eyes widened, and she said in the cutest voice Zoro could ever remember her using, will you play tag with us too, Zoro? Zoro tried to look her down, he really did. But now that he was a girl, and her face was better suited to a pout, he just could not resist. Fine, but only for one round. Yay. Usopp. Chopper. Zoro is gonna play with us. Usopp ran into the kitchen. Really, how did you manage to convince him? And then Usopp's gaze traveled down slightly, and his mouth made an O, and then a sly grin found itself on Usopp's face, and he said, come on Luffy, if you are going to be using them for that, you are gonna need a girl talk and makeover. Luffy, being Luffy, had no idea what Usopp was talking about, and agreed, just as Chopper showed up. What's going on, guys? He asked, staring at Luffy, trying to get used to her new face. Usopp responded before Luffy or Zoro had a chance. Zoro is going to play tag with us after lunch. For now, Luffy is going to learn how to be a girl. And then Usopp dragged Luffy out of the kitchen, yelling for Nami and Robin. Zoro growled his annoyance before going outside and looking for a nice spot to sleep. Nami and Robin were in the women's quarters doing their own things and listening to the yelling from the deck. Nami was about to put the final line on her map when the door flew open and Yusuf flew in the door, literally dragging Luffy by her shirt through the door. Nami, Robin, he yelled. Luffy needs. Nami cut him off by punching him in the head. You moron. You messed up my map. Yusuf hit the floor and groaned. I'm sorry, I just thought that now that Luffy is a girl you would need to help her get used to it. By giving her a makeover or something. Nami sighed. Yes, later lad, and then her eyes shot open, and a sneaky grin plastered itself on her face. Okay, sure. Luffy came with me. Luffy picked herself up and dusted off. Okay. She chirped. Robin. You keep Zoro distracted. Very well, Navigator-san. No? Nami, Robin, and Usopp all looked at Luffy. Why not Captain-san? All of a sudden Luffy looked extremely agitated. Forget it, Luffy snapped out, giving a good glare to everyone in the room before stomping out. What's her problem? Usopp said. Nami looked at him blankly for a moment, before a realization seemed to flood into her. I have an idea, Robin. Could you please go ask Sanji for a snack covered in salt and soy sauce? Also some cola maybe. Yes, Navigator-san. Robin then walked out of the room heading for the kitchen. After 5 minutes Robin brought the food to Luffy per Nami's instructions, and left her alone. Luffy happily gobbled up the food, and then laid back to take a nap. It had been maybe 2 hours, and was now lunchtime. Lunch? Sanji roared. Everyone hurried to their seats to avoid having the human vacuum eat their food, but Luffy never showed. Luffy? Lunch. Sanji yelled a little louder now. Still nothing. I'll get her. Nami said with a knowing smile. Nami walked to the front of the boat to see Luffy curled in a ball agent at the wall of the ship. Luffy looked up at Nami with pain clearly on her face. Nami, what did you put in that snack? Nami smiled sadly down at Luffy. Salt and caffeine, Luffy. Now follow me, and I can make it better. It had been an hour, and finally Nami came back with an exhausted Luffy. What happened to Luffy? Chopper asked. Turns out if Luffy had been a girl her entire life, this is the day the monthly problems would be starting. Chopper looked understanding. Sanji and Yusa turned red. Frankie and Brooke were not in the room. Robin looked sympathetic, and Zoro looked well asleep. Anyone who wants to talk or hang out with Luffy should know that she could swiftly become angry with anyone, and chances are if she becomes angry she won't hold back. Usopp, Zoro, and Sanji are the 3 most at risk, so you guys watch your necks. Usopp gasped. Why me? Because you 3 are the 3 she spends most of her time with. Oh, yes. Nami then proceeded to drop Luffy in her chair next to Zoro, where she fell on him like she was dead. Zoro patted her head, and was starting to fall back asleep when his eyes popped open. He glanced at Luffy, then at the clock in the wall, and moved to stand up, and Luffy grabbed him. Zoro doesn't go, Luffy hummed tiredly. By now Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji were the only 3 in the room. Luffy, I need to. Robin wanted to meet me 10 minutes ago. Luffy's face adopted a shadow momentarily, but swiftly dropped it, and glanced at Sanji. Fine. Sanji, come here. Zoro won't let me sleep on him. I want to rest on you instead. Sanji looked to be fighting himself, before giving a long sigh, and nodding his consent. Alright, let me dry this last dish, and we can rest on the deck in the sun where it is warm. Luffy leapt from her place on Zoro, and jumped on Sanji's back. Yay. Thanks, Sanji. Sanji finished his chores, and walked out into the shade of the, and huddled into that corner before Luffy leapt on him, and leaned against his chest, falling asleep in a few short minutes. Zoro saw what Luffy did, and became angry quite fast, but avoided detection by swiftly running out of the room, and slamming the door. He growled, and stomped off to Robin's room. Robin, I do not understand what is so damn good about that freaking love cook. All he does is cook. Zoro-san, food is one of Luffy-sama's favorite things, but keep in mind that you are her first mate, and will always be the first she turns to. Tell me, why were you late? The blush covered Zoro's cheeks, and he said in as calm a voice as he could muster. Luffy was falling asleep on my arm, and I lost track of time, and, as soon as I realized I was late I got up, and left. Did she try to stop you? Well yes, but so why did you leave? You make it look like you are trying to push her away. Even if I confess he would say no. Luffy cares about the crew too much for that. Please remember that Luffy-sama is a girl currently. Zoro's eye twitched when all of a sudden Nami burst in with Luffy. Zoro gets out. We are going to give Luffy a makeover. It cheers up all girls. Zoro grumbled, but nodded, and left anyway. After 20 minutes or so Luffy came out of the girls' room, sat on some steps, and sighed. Zoro walked over to her. What is wrong? I hate being a girl. Why? What's so bad about it? Nothing. So then why do you hate it? I just do. I can't be a female captain. It doesn't work like that. I'm not fit to be your captain anymore. Luffy. Zoro said firmly. I chose to follow you because you are a strong captain who won't interfere with my dream. If you get so upset over simply being a girl, maybe I chose wrong, and you are not actually fit to be my captain. Luffy straightened out, and nodded. She knew that what Zoro said was harsh, but it had a strong meaning. You're right, I'm sorry for dropping an invisible load on you. Zoro grinned. I'm first mate, it's my job to cheer you up. Shishishi. I guess I picked well. I'm annoyed though. Annoyed with Nami. I was napping on deck under a tree with Sanji when she came, ripped me off of Sanji, and dragged me to the women's quarters for a makeover. They tried to put powder all over my face. Zoro smiled. Well, I need to get back to work. You mean napping? Yes, napping, so, nope. You said you would play tag. Well yes, but, Usopp. Chopper. We are gonna play tag. Luffy roared with her inhumanly loud voice. You won't let me get anything out if it goes against your plan with you. Nah, because if I do that I'll get mad at you. Sigh, right, fine. I changed my mind, we are playing hide and seek. What? Just then Chopper and Usopp showed up. So we are playing hide and seek? Usopp asked. Yup. Luffy replied, and Zoro is it. Everyone hides. The three hiders all ran in different directions, while Zoro grumbled about needing to play stupid kid games. Was there something I was supposed to say when I was done counting to 50? Nah. After 30 minutes he found Chopper in a barrel in Frankie's inventions room Thingy, and Usopp in the library behind the couch. Luffy, Zoro groaned. You're a really good hider. Just as Zoro was about to yell out and I give up, Sanji yelled for Chopper. Chopper? Help. Something is wrong with Luffy. Zoro jumped into overdrive and rushed to the kitchen. He was the last one there. What happened? Zoro yelled. She was asleep, so I moved to get up, and all of a sudden she started yelling out for someone named Oliver. Just then Luffy yelled out at the top of her lungs, you promised to be my first mate. And then burst into tears. Zoro, being the good first mate he was, walked over to Luffy and started petting her hair and saying calming words. Luffy's wet eyes cracked open. Zoro. She said in a quiet voice. It's okay, we're all here for you. Luffy's eyes widened and she pushed herself away from Zoro. I'm fine. Asked Sanji. Food. Luffy staggered to her seat at the table. Nami and Robin each took a seat on either side of Luffy, leaving no space for Zoro. After a moment Zoro sat across from Luffy. Luffy shook her head repeatedly until Sanji put a large plate of food in front of her. She eyed it warily and started picking at it. Luffy? Are you sick? Luffy looked at Robin and shook her head in a no motion. Luffy, you need to eat. Luffy nodded and ate a bite that a normal human might take, so a super small one. Zoro watched the interaction and swiftly became annoyed. Usually when Luffy was down he would stare at him with puppy eyes until he helped her fall asleep or calmed her down, but she seemed to be avoiding looking at him. After 10 minutes of Luffy picking at her food and avoiding Zoro, Zoro blew his fuse. Luffy eats, damn it. You're worrying all of us over what could be really big or really small. If it's bothering you that much, just tell us. Luffy looked up at Zoro as tears formed and she jumped up. Zoro, you jerk. I'm the captain, I can't put my burdens on you. Before she ran out of the room, tears were streaming down her face. Sanji kicked Zoro in the head. You moron. You are the reason she is upset. Zoro spun around and yelled at Sanji with sharp teeth. Sanji, you idiot. I did not do anything. Nami punched both of them in the head. Stop fighting. Robin decided now was a good time to intervene. Remember when she woke up Swordsman-san? She yelled about someone named Oliver and how he promised to be her first mate, yes. Zoro nodded his head, remembering clearly because of how jealous he felt. Don't you think that would make her worry that you might be upset with her? Zoro's eyes widened as he realized what he just did. Oh crap. How do I make it up to her? Robin opened her mouth to respond just in time to hear Luffy yell. Zoro jumped to his feet and ran to the boys' room just to see she was not there, and then ran to the girls' room to see her lying on the floor. Luffy. Zoro scooped her up in his arms and put her on a bed before sitting next to her and petting her head. It's okay, Luffy, it's okay. I'm here for you, I'm here. Slowly Luffy's eyes opened and she blinked up at Zoro. And she blinked again. And again. And then she rubbed her eyes and blinked again before her eyes widened like saucers and she threw her arms around Zoro's neck. Oliver. She yelled loudly before muttering under her breath just loud enough for Zoro to hear. I must still be dreaming. Zoro's eyes widened and he pushed her away. Luffy? What is wrong with you? Luffy laughed. Oh Oliver. You are funny. Come on. I want you to meet my crew. Zoro sat dumbfounded until Chopper came in. Chopper? What is wrong with Luffy? Chopper went into doctor mode, asking Luffy a bunch of questions and whatnot until he was done. If there is anything wrong with her, it's nothing I can see. What did you think was wrong? I don't know, but she keeps calling me Oliver. Luffy laughed. Oliver is funny. Do another one. Zoro gave Chopper a look that said see. See. Luffy, Chopper began. Who is this? Oh, that's an easy one. That's Oliver. And who am I? You're Chopper. My doctor. And who are you? I'm Luca. The girl who will be the pirate queen. Chopper blinked, confused and obvious, and just as he opened his eyes, as if to say more, blinding light shot from Luffy, and she fell over. Chopper shook his head and felt for a pulse. Looks like she is gonna be a ghost. Chopper then ran to Zoro and grabbed his leg. By now everyone else was in the room and could see what was happening. The woman who looked like she was 20 or so had just floated out of Luffy. Zoro growled at the woman. Who are you, and what did you do to Luffy? The woman looked over at Zoro. She had long flowing black hair, she was almost the exact same height as Luffy, and had a refined face. She smiled at Zoro. Zoro, she always liked you best. Zoro's eyes narrowed. The woman laughed. Sorry Zoro. You guys don't know me, but I know all of you very well. I'm Gummy, but my friends call me Gum, and most people call me Gum Gum Fruit. I am the devil, as most people call it, from the fruit Luca ate, as a girl. Robin, being the calmest, walked up and put a hand on Zoro's arm. Swordsman-san, perhaps you should see. Robin, being surprised at the tone that came from Gummy, stopped. Yes? Please do not get too close to Zoro, you are hurting Luca. Zoro swiftly moved away from Robin and sat down. You'd better explain. Yeah, us devils used to meet on this day every year, so we got let out, but we cancelled the meeting because it took some of us more than a day to get to, and from the meeting, and that hurt our users, so we stopped. Anyway, you guys have shared so much with your captain, but do you know anything about her? Of course we do. Alright, what was her mother's name? A long string of silence flooded the room. Thought so. I'm going to let you look at her memories, as you wish while I take my day off. I'll pull you out a bit before I need to return, so you can ask stuff, okay? Have a nice trip. Before any of the Mugiwara crew could do or say anything, they were sent into a white vortex. It had been maybe 10 minutes when Zoro woke up on a warm fuzzy surface. He sat up and looked around. Sanji was fussing over Nami and Robin, Chopper was helping Usopp and Frankie, and the book looked like he was doing the same thing as him. They appeared to be in a carpeted room, where the floor was the warmest thing. There were 4 walls, and each had a door with a word on it. The door in front of him said sad, the door to the right of him said happy, the door behind him said love, the door to the left said timeline, and there was a door on the ceiling that said heart, but that one was black, and had what looked like 6 locks on it. Hey, is everyone alright? Zoro asked, double-checking the crew. That was his job, as first mate after all. The chorus of yes was heard all around him. Zoro got up and grumbled about trusting that wench, before calling everyone in. Alright, do you wanna stay here explore? Let's super explore. I don't think we could get out even if we wanted to, Swordsman-san. Of course Mormio. Yo-ho-ho-ho. I wish to see her panties. Nami punched Brook in the head. Luffy is not even originally a girl, moron. I, the great Captain Usopp, shall brave the unknown with Chopper at my side. Okay? Chopper piped. Zoro nodded. Let's go then. Happy, sad, love, or timeline first. Let's look sad. Usopp said. Luffy never tells us when he is sad. It is probably best to go with the timeline, but if you want to see sadness, we can look into 1 or 2 memories from sadness if you like, replied Robin. Nami thought about it before saying, yeah, that's probably better. The Mugiwara crew made their way to the sad door. They opened it, and on the other side was a long hallway with doors. Every door had a date, title, and a number in between 1 and 10. One of the sets of doors that struck the crew was a set of 8 doors, all except for 2, which had a 2 and 3 on them. The other 6 had the number 1 on them, with each of their names. The 2 that had numbers 2 and 3 on them were under Sanji and Zoro. Let's try the Supppaa door, Frankie said. The door he was standing in front of was one of the 8 doors. It was the one with Zoro's name on it, and it had a 3. They all agreed, and walked into the room. The door opened, and then the room behind them disappeared. They were standing on water, next to a ship. What a day. It's gorgeous. As long as we stay on this heading we should reach the marine base in no time. Well Kobe, you're great out here. You mean we are actually going to get to the place we set out for? It's really nothing. Luffy laughed. Zoro eyed the scene, and decided that walking next to the ship was a pain in the butt, and sat down in the ship to watch. Looks like we get to play in his memories for a day. The rest of the crew nodded, and tried to settle in. There really isn't anything to be so giggly about, Kobe started, because the pirate hunter Urano Zoro is being held at the marine base. This is the man that diced up his enemies like an animal Venton, a bloodthirsty beast. He's been called nothing less than a living, breathing demon in human form. Luffy's voice echoed in the Straw Hats' heads. This Zoro guy sounds cool. I should bring him along with me to the Grand Line. Zoro popped a vein. So it's all Kobe's fault. I should have known. After a good amount of time listening to Luffy and Kobe chat, they arrived. We're here. Luffy roared. Luffy, if you think getting Zoro to join your crew is a good idea, you are wrong. Well, I haven't made up my mind yet. I need to see if he is a good guy first. He's in prison because he's obviously not. Luffy grabbed a pear and bit it. This is good, thanks. Luffy tossed him a coin. Say, is that guy Zoro around here? The crowd of people jumped away. Say Luffy, maybe we should not mention Zoro here. Kobe whispered into his ear. Let's head to the base, and check it out. You wanna be a marine, right? Well, of course I do, Luffy, but I really don't think I'm ready yet. From what I hear, the man in charge of this base is named Captain Morgan. Another crowd of people jumped back. Ha 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 ha. This town is such a weird place. That was odd. I mean, I understand if they were scared of Zoro, but why would they be scared of the marine captain? Maybe they were all just jumping around for the fun of it. And how would that make any sense? They walked up to the gate of the marine base. This looks like the place. Luffy said aloud. I made it. Tears welled in Kobe's eyes. This is where we parted ways. We didn't have long together, but Kobe looked up to see Luffy hanging on the wall. Where's the food? Get down from there. What are you doing? They'll see you. Now where's this demon? They wouldn't keep him out in the open. He's probably tucked in a prison cell below ground. There he is. I'm gonna get closer. Luffy looked over the wall. Kobe, look. Sai, I'm telling you he's not ga. That bandana on his head, and that hair maki is for Rano Zoro. If we can just untie those ropes he can just walk away. Don't be such an idiot, Luffy. There's no telling what a bandit like him might do if we let him go. He might just kill us both. The Mugiwara felt an amusement bubble next to their own emotions. That this is how Luffy felt. Yusa commented offhandedly. Don't worry, I'm strong. I can protect us. Although Luffy couldn't tell what Kobe was thinking, it was clear to the other Mugiwaras what he was. He's lost his mind. Hey you two, Zoro said. Kobe responded with a cry. You're an eyesore. Get lost. Sanji grinned. Man Marmio, you sure we're weak, being tied up like that? Zoro popped a vein. I was a starving idiot cook. Sanji growled one go, but they were interrupted in their fight by Yell. Luffy, trust me, there is no chance of survival with someone like him on your crew. Then a ladder popped up next to them, and a girl climbed up next to Luffy and Kobe. She hummed out before looking both ways, letting down a rope and sliding down. She then started moving tired Zoro. Kobe's eyes widened. Luffy, you've gotta stop her, she'll be killed. What do you want? Zoro grouched out. I thought you might be hungry by now, so I made you a couple of rice balls. You got a death wish, kid. Just scream. But you haven't eaten anything in days. Here. I've never really made them before, but I did my best, so I think they are fine. They saw Luffy's face go blank. I think that this was your first test, Zoro. Nami said. Zoro glanced at her, and decided not to say anything. The surprise on Zoro's face was slight, but it was there. Listen kid, I'm not hungry. So stop irritating me, and get out of here. But then the Mugiwaras heard Luffy think. I don't think I will ever get used to hearing him think. Yusa commented, clearly freaking out slightly. What a dandelion. A dandelion. Is he talking about Zoro the girl? Nami shrieked, clearly not understanding. She looked over to Zoro to ask if he knew to see him blushing slightly. Don't ask, you will probably figure it out for yourself soon anyways. Zoro rumbled. Do not make me kick your ass, little girl. Now, no one likes a bully. A new voice piped out. Urano Zoro. You seem to be handling this well. Don't you agree? Hey look, there's another weird guy. Luffy commented from the side. Thank goodness the Marines are here, now the girl will be safe. Not all Marines are good, Kobe. Lucky, some tasty rice balls, said the strange man before snatching a rice ball out of her hand and eating it. That's not for you. The man made a horrified face. La. Too sweet. They're packed with sugar. You're supposed to use salt, you idiot. But I thought they'd taste better sweet. Give me that. He said before grabbing the rice ball, throwing it on the ground, and stomping on it. No. Stop. The girl cried. He's angry. Thought Luffy. That's just awful. Kobe said quietly. But I worked so hard to make those. Too bad. You must have not read the notice that was posted. Anyone who helps the prisoner will be executed. Signed Marine Captain Morgan. The girl. So even little brats like you are afraid of my daddy. Throw her over the wall. But sir, she's just a little girl. If you don't, as I say, I'll tell my daddy to you. Why yes, sir. Sorry about this, the Marine said. Try curling up into a ball. He lifted her and threw her over the wall. Luffy jumped up and grabbed the girl, turning so he would take the brunt of the fall. Luffy grunted. Thanks, Mr. Luffy. Kobe said, running up. Are you two okay? What about you, little girl, are you okay? As Kobe questioned the girl and the strange guy walked away, Luffy climbed over the wall. So I hear you're a bad guy. Oh? You're still here. Zoro grumbled. You're stuck out here for all the world to see. Are you really all that strong? I already can tell you are strong. This is a test of will. Mind your own business. Sai, if I were you I'd have starved in 3 days. I've got more spirit than you'll ever have, which is how I'm going to survive this ordeal. Zoro said with a creepy smile. I forgot how creepy you used to look, Zoro. Nami said. Shut up. Zoro snorted. What is Sencho-san doing? Robin suddenly said, and everyone looked to see that just above Luffy's head was a thought bubble thing, and he was doing a happy dance, but on the outside he just grinned slightly. The pass. Ha! What a weirdo. Wait, hold on. Zoro paled. Why does Luffy need to remember this? Luffy stopped walking and glanced back. Could you pick that up for me? As he eyed the food. You're gonna eat this? Luffy said, picking up the rice ball. Cuss, it's mostly a bowl of mud. Shut up and give it to me. Nami laughed. Hard. Shut up, you witch. Luffy fed Zoro the food, and he swiftly started coughing. You should have listened to me. Luffy said. The complete dandelion. It was good. Zoro said, his eyes covered. Thanks for the food. Luffy smiled a small smile, and left. He went to find Kobe and the girl. When he finally found them, they were in a restaurant. Zoro said your food was good. He told her. Really? That's right. He ate every grain of rice. Ah. That's great. I wonder if Zoro is as mean as everyone thinks he is. Kobe muttered. He's not. The girl cried. He got tied up because he was protecting us. And then the girl started on a story that Luffy more or less tuned out. The only things he really got was the fact that Zoro got himself tied up to help the little girl, and that stupid Helmeppo is kicking and punching him while he is tied. Slowly the Mugiwaras felt Luffy's rage, and then Helmeppo came in saying how he was bored and was going to execute Zoro the next day. The Mugiwara crew was baffled. They watched as Luffy punched Helmeppo, and they heard him think, loud and clear, "Don't touch him." But out loud he said, "This guy is scum." "Luffy," Kobe yelled, grabbing his arms. "You idiot. Don't make an enemy of them." Helmeppo sat there stunned before telling Luffy, "I'm going to tell my daddy to you," and then ran out. Luffy growled at Helmeppo as he left. What a coward. How dare he not keep his promises. Executing Zoro tomorrow is the worst. Then the Mugiwaras saw something strange. An image of Zoro floated above Luffy's head, and then a deep sadness planted itself. "Don't be stupid, Luca. You are Luffy now. You should not be thinking things like that." Luffy growled again, and said to Kobe, "Zoro is going to join my crew." Luffy stormed through the town to the marine base, anger written all over his face. "Funny," Zoro said, "I don't remember him being that mad." Swordsman-san, Luffy, referred to himself as Luca. "Do you think he was originally a girl?" Zoro gave Robin a look before he went back to watching. "I should probably calm myself down." His face dissolved into a blank look, and he jumped over the wall to stand in front of Zoro. Zoro looks up at Luffy. "Oh? It's you again. I will untie you, but I want you to join my crew." "You're what? My crew?" "I'm running a pirate crew, and I want you to join up." "Pirates? Screw that business." "Why not? Everyone already knows you, as some vicious bounty hunter is always out for blood." "That may be true, but I have never in my life done something I regret. I will make it through this challenge, and I will accomplish my dreams." "That's nice and all, but I have already decided that you are going to join my crew." "What? You can't just decide that on your own. I hear you are one of the best swordsmen around." "Well, I am, but that idiot Helmeppo took my swords." "Wow, Luffy really steered you off track, Zoro," Nami pointed out. "Guess I'll just have to go get it back for you." "What? And if you want your sword back, you will need to join my crew." "Now you're really pissing me off." Wahahahaha. Luffy then started running in the wrong direction. "Wait, he is actually gonna bust in there alone." "Hey Genius. You are going the wrong way." "Oops. Sigh. Gum. Rocket." Luffy flew by Zoro. "What is he?" Zoro said, shocked. Luffy was running and thinking. "Luffy, you idiot. I really wanted him to join my crew, but to the point of acting like mom." "Really? Oh well, I guess acting like the devil is no biggie." Luffy looked up. "Huh. Something going on up there. Better get a better look." Gum. Rocket. "Oh no. I jumped too far." He reached out and grabbed a rope. Got it. Then the rock thing broke and fell to the ground. He heard a lot of yelling. "Sorry about that. That is a sad Luffy thing to do," Nami said, exasperated. "So that is what that noise was," Zoro said. "Luffy is an idiot," Sanji remarked, and just as Chopper opened his mouth to speak, the captain roared. "Seize him and hold him so I can kill him myself." "That's him, daddy. The one who hit me." "Hey. It's you. I've been looking for you all over. You have something I really need." Luffy then grabbed by the neck and ran off. "Okay," Luffy said, running through the halls. "Tell me where Zoro's swords are." I'll tell you. Just please stop dragging me across the carpet." "Fine," Luffy said. "Spill." "In my room. We just passed it, the third door on the left." "Why didn't you say so earlier?" "Now we need to go all the way back," Luffy said, picking up and using him as a shield. "Hey Gummy," thought Luffy. "Yeah." Gummy replied. "Keep an eye on Zoro for me. I want to be able to get there in case I'm needed." "Sure." Then the vision of the Straw Hats were split in two, as if Luffy could see two different spots at the same time. "Thanks Gummy." Yeah, do you want me to read his thoughts?" "No? That would be intruding." You could hear the smirk in Gummy's voice, as she said you didn't seem to care when it was Kobe. Something different about Zoro. Luffy growled, and decided to ignore Gummy, but at the same time looking at what was going on with Zoro. "Hey. Stop. Those crazy marines will kill you for trying to untie my Zoro said, as Kobe walked up and started untying him. "I can't stand to see the marines act this way. True marines should be honorable. Look kid, you should just leave. I've got 10 days left till." "Well, not quite, they are gonna execute you tomorrow." "What? Helmeppo never intended to honor your agreement. He planned on killing you from the start." Which made Luffy really angry, so he punched Helmeppo. He did. Now the marines are mad and dead set on catching Luffy. "Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to become a pirate though. I just think that Luffy is the only one who can save you, and you in turn are the only one who can save him." End of the line. Captain Morgan yelled. Luffy's eyes widened, and he called back Gummy, and ran faster. He ran into Helmeppo's room, and saw 3 swords. He didn't know which one was Zoro's, so he grabbed them all, and jumped out the window to land in front of Zoro, and Kobe to take the bullets. "What? Luffy no. Straw Hat. Wahahaha. That wouldn't work on me. Told you I was strong. My name is Minky D. Luffy. And I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Are you out of your rubbery mind?" At first I was dubious too. Kobe piped up, but he was completely serious. He has every intention of finding the world's ultimate treasure, the One Piece. Do you even know what that means? Zoro yelled at Luffy, thinking he was a complete idiot. King of the Pirates means King of the Pirates. How could it mean anything else? Anyway, I got your sword just as promised. But I could not tell which was yours, so I brought them all. Luffy said, shoving 3 swords in Zoro's face. All of them belong to me. I use Santoryu, the 3-sword style. Hurry up and take me. But if you take them and fight with me to get out of here, you will be a wanted criminal anyways and be hunted down, or you can stay here and be killed. It is up to you. You really are the son of a devil. Fine, I'll join you, because if I don't, I'll just end up dead here anyways. Yes. Another image popped up above Luffy's head. He was hugging the life out of Zoro, but in reality Luffy just jumped up and down with Zoro's swords. Yes. I gotta be a member. Will you stop celebrating and untie me already? You're scary, Zoro. Chopper squeaked. Luffy held the sword under an arm and started trying to untie Zoro and ignoring the talk about devil fruits. What weird people. I'm just glad I found such a firm softie to be my first mate. Why does this gotta be so tight? Wait, I think it got tighter. This is not time to be screwing around. Zoro said. Panic slowly started to show. Another test. That's funny, the knots got tighter instead of looser. Give me one of my damn swords now. Alright, here. I'm worried. What if he fails? Relax, Luka-sama, you're the one who picked him. Besides, who does he remind you of? Luffy blushed slightly, but Zoro and everyone else was too into Zoro cutting himself free to realize. Oliver. Exactly. Just then Zoro stopped all the marines and was now standing still. That's so cool. Luffy said, regaining his composure. Make one move and you die. Zoro rumbled to the marines, who all started crying. What wimpy marines. How very on, Super Frankie commented. Keep in mind this is the East Blue and there were very few strong pirates there. Robin pointed out. Alright, Zoro said, talking around his sword. Today I officially became a pirate. But so long as I am with you, I will only work toward my ambition. Which is to be the best swordsman on the sea, and if you do anything to interfere with my dream, you will kill yourself on my blade. Luffy grinned. The Pirate King can't be having any less than the best, can he? It is a deal. Now duck. Just then Luffy threw his foot over Zoro, wiping out all the marines. You wanna tell me what you are? I'm just a guy who ate gum fruit. Luffy and Zoro then listened to a slight monologue, and when Luffy finally got too bored he ran up and punched the captain. Zoro seemed content to just watch. This was when I tested him, Zoro said, watching the show. Luffy then quickly kicked Morgan to the ground and started punching him. You call yourself a marine, but you crushed my friend's dream. Stop right there, Helmeppo yelled. Luffy didn't respond, almost as if he failed to hear him. Are you stupid or something? I have a hostage here you might want to look at. Luffy still ignored him. Finally Zoro said hey. And Luffy looked up. Huh? If you move a muscle I'll shoot him. Kobe then had a little outburst, and Luffy just responded with of course before putting himself into punching position. Just then he felt Morgan behind him. Final test, and an image of him being sliced in half popped up, but he shook out the thought. I'll be fine. Zoro won't let that happen. Luffy then said. Gum pistol. And he punched Helmeppo in the face. I'm not cut in half. That's a good sign. Luffy then looked over his shoulder to see Zoro had indeed taken down the captain. A feeling of joy and depression flooded him. I just had to pick someone so perfect, didn't I? Well duh, replied Gummy. That's just what you do. Thanks, Luffy said, ignoring Gummy. Just doing my job, Captain. I do not see how this is a sad memory. In fact, it seems like a better memory than how he got me. Nami said. I don't know. Ask Luffy when we get out of here. Zoro rumbled. If there's anyone else who wants to step forward and fight us, then do it now. The Marines all looked around and then threw their hats in the air, cheering on the fact that Captain Morgan was defeated. As soon as Zoro realized what was happening, he fell on his back with a grunt. Oh no. Zoro, are you hurt? Kobe cries, as Luffy looks at him. So hungry. Sanji gave Zoro a look of pity. Luffy helped Zoro get to the little girl's restaurant, and they were fed a feast. This is so great. Luffy and Zoro ate before being kicked off the island by the Marys. They were at sea with Zoro sleeping soundly, and Luffy staring at him. Man. Gummy, he is just amazing. Could you make me a girl for a bit? Please. Luffy thought in his head. Luka-san, you told me not to ever turn you back into a girl unless it was an emergency. Fine. I'll do this, as a boy then. Luffy then moved really close to Zoro's face, to the point where their noses were touching, and they were breathing the same air. Zoro. Luffy said, seemingly testing how awake he was. After getting no response, he took off Zoro's shirt and looked him up and down. I do not remember this, Zoro said with a frown. Well duh, you were asleep. Zoro grunted in response. Wow. Luffy said, developing a slight blush before shaking his head and leaning down to the biggest bruise and liking it. What the hell? Zoro yelled, getting quite a few laughs. Look. Chopper yelled, pulling everyone's attention back to the memory. As Luffy-like bruises, they slowly faded until Zoro was almost completely healed and Luffy flinched. Crap. I went too slow. Luffy then opened his shirt, and what the crew saw shocked them. Luffy has switched all the bruises from Zoro onto himself. I can't stop yet though. Luffy then leaned forward, and licked at the last of the bruises, successfully healing Zoro. Zoro's face was bright red. I guess that explains why I healed so fast. Ugh. It's times when I meet people like this that I wish I was still a girl. Can't ever turn back though. After staring at Zoro for a while longer, Luffy sighed, curled up next to Zoro, and drifted off to sleep. Then the memory faded away. The crew sat in silence. What the hell? Zoro said, face bright red. How is that possible? Is that how we heal from all our fights? Usopp said, looking greatly disturbed. Maybe we should ponder on it on the walk to the timeline door, Robin suggested. Just then Luffy's voice flooded the room, but it sounded much more feminine. Hey Gummy. The Mugiwaras were at a loss. Luffy obviously did not want them to know about all this. As Robin was about to reply, Gummy's voice flooded the room. Yes, Luka-sama. I know it is your day off and all, but could you keep the crew in check for me? Because you have control, I want you to act like me or something. I don't really want them to know about you, and I really don't want them to know I am actually a girl. They will think less of me if they do. Then a note of distaste enters Luffy's voice. Men always think lower of the girls. I suppose, Melody. But it may be for the best to tell them. They already trust in your ability to fight. Yes, but I haven't even been a girl for a full day, and already they act differently. Usopp and Chopper keep giving me funny looks, Brook keeps asking to see my panties, Frankie won't let me watch him work, Sanji won't talk to me, and Nami keeps trying to put makeup on my face. I mean, what is wrong with my face, as it is? A note of hurt enters her voice. Is my face just ugly or something? I think you are overthinking this, Melody. Girls like to put powder on their faces, and Robin and Zoro still act normal, don't they? Luffy's voice is full of anger and hurt now. Robin and Zoro are so stuck on each other that they probably don't even realize I'm a girl. Gummy sighs. Of course, Luka-sama. Enjoy your sleep. It'll probably be full of nightmares. Luffy grumbles before saying much more clearly, I will see you when you come back, Gummy. The Mugiwaras are stunned. Luffy is afraid of being a girl. Usopp said, surprised. Copper teared up. I feel like a jerk for acting awkward now. And he jumped onto Robin and cried. That would explain his upset reaction from when he came out of the girls' room though, wouldn't it? This is very on Super Bros. I shall respect her panties from now on. I won't try to put any more makeup on her. I'll do my best to treat her, as I usually do. Wait. Zoro finally spoke. She said that she thought Robin and I were too caught up in each other to notice that she's a girl. What does she take us for? Umi's voice floated to them. I'll answer some of your questions later, but for now why don't you try to get a feel for Luka-sen's mind? Good idea. Robin hummed. To timeline. The chorus of yeses flooded the room, and the Mugiwaras headed to the timeline door. The Mugiwaras went through the timeline door, and on the other side was a short hall with 3 doors, other than the one they just came from. The one they came from said main room, the door directly down the hall, said entire timeline, the door to the left said important timeline, and the door to the right said unimportant timeline. Robin walked to the door on the left, and opened it. How about this one? She suggested softly. Sure, Zoro said. As first mate he had all the authority, so everyone followed him. The scene changed, and Luffy was a small girl, who was 4, maybe 5. Mama, where did Daddy go? Your daddy wanted freedom, so he went to lead his army. Why didn't he take me with him? He said that one day I could go on adventures with him. He did not take you because you are a child and a female. Being a girl can be a bad or good thing. In your case it is a bad thing. Is it bad that I'm a girl? Why? Because your daddy needs a son. Why does it matter? I thought that boys and girls were the same. Just girls can have babies. That's exactly it, Luka. Girls are strong in a different way. Daddy needs someone who is strong like a boy. I can be strong like a boy. Watch. One day I can protect you from the bad guys who come for our food every week. Luffy's mom gave Luffy a cold look. Luka. She started firmly, I am an assassin, and that is a bad thing. Those bad men. I told them I was taking a break from work to raise you, so they come to take some food every week. Do not try to stop them. But Mama, Daddy is starving. He is not getting the food he needs. That is part of why he left us. The other part is the fact that you are a girl, he can't be protecting some girl all the time. But Luffy then turned and went back to drawing. After an hour 2 dark figures came into the house, both of them tall and skinny. The master sent us to get you Rose D. Sylvia. Your prolonged break is too long, and the master is becoming impatient. Sylvia eyed the 2 men, before throwing a knife at one of them, successfully beating him to the front door, and punching the other in the jaw. Come on, Luka. She said before grabbing Luffy's hand, and running out the back door to the market. When they got to the market, Sylvia walked over to a vendor, and pulled out a bright blue necklace. The vendor gasped. I've been looking for that. Sylvia grinned. Then you had better give me some apples. The vendor eyed her, but nodded, and gave her a bag of apples. Sylvia was known for her trickery. Thanks, she said before running into the forest. Luffy was panting. Mama, why are we running so much? Because there are bad men after me. She then shoved Luffy into a crook of a tree with the bag of apples. Luffy was facing a cliff. Stay here, and do not come out under any circumstances. Yes, Mama. Luffy said before turning slightly and pulling out an apple to munch on. Sylvie eyed Luffy. Remember Luca, if you had been a boy this could have been avoided. Luffy looked confused, but nodded anyway. After that Sylvia ran over to the cliff and started yelling. Luffy saw 3 boys run at her mother, all in dark cloaks, and they started fighting. 2 of them pulled swords, and in the fight Sylvia grabbed the 2 with the swords and ran off the cliff face. Nami gasped and teared up. That is a horrible thing to leave on your kid's shoulders. It's not like Luffy had control over her gender. Luffy's eyes widened and watched as the last man stared for a few minutes before leaving. I can't come out, I can't come out. After a few hours Luffy finally gave up and wandered the forest for a while. Sadness pulled in the Mugiwara's bellies. So much sadness the Usopp, Frankie, Brook, Chopper, and even Nami were crying slightly. Mama Luffy whined with tears in her eyes. They were in a thick forest, and Luffy was still wondering. Mama, why did you leave me here, Mama? She sobbed out softly. She started running. She ran all the way back to a cliffside and sat on her knees sobbing. Mama, why did you jump? Come back. Don't leave me. Luffy's sobbing filled the clearing. Just because I am a weak girl. Luffy said quietly after sobbing for a few minutes. If I was a boy, would you have stayed? That must be part of why Luffy is scared of being a girl. Sanji said in a calm voice. Just then a small boy ran and tripped, almost falling off the edge. He yelled, grabbing for anything. Luffy swiftly grabbed his arm and pulled him back up. Are you okay? She said in the smallest, quietest voice any of them had ever heard her use before. She was acting shy almost. The boy looked at her. He looked to be about 5. I'm fine, but you look like you just died. He said bluntly. And my mom jumped off of here earlier, Luffy stuttered out before she started crying into her hands again. The boy looked lost. I'm sorry, but why are you here and not with your father? Mom said Daddy left me because he wanted freedom. I am all. Luffy bowed her head further and continued sobbing into her hands. The boy looked unsure of himself, so he just stared at her for a minute before saying, you could come live with me for a while, you know, if you wanted to. Luffy looked up at him with her tear-stained face before finally forcing out a small smile and nodding. Thank you. She then stood up, shaking for a minute before following the boy. After walking for about 10 minutes or so they came upon a small village. This is Windmill Village, the boy said. I live here with my mom, but my dad died in a war a few years back. I don't even know what he looks like anymore. Luffy, who looked like she had recovered quite a bit, decided that talking was safe, as long as she was really quiet. Oh, I'm sorry. You're a really quiet person, huh? She nodded. Well, at least tell me your name. Luca. He reached out to shake her hand, seemingly having just remembered. Nice to meet you, Luca. I'm Oliver. Luffy, or Luca, as you could call her, seemed to be confused. Sigh, Luca, you're supposed to shake my hand. That is what you are supposed to do when you meet someone new. Oh? She said quietly before reaching out and gently shaking his hand. Much better. He said with a smile, but rather than dropping her hand after the shake, he switched hands and walked with her hand in hand to a bar. Who is this punk? Sanji demanded while growling at Oliver. A friend of Luffy's by the looks of it. Zoro said, looking like wanted to be growling, but decided against it. They walked into a bar that was empty except for the bartender. She was moderately tall and had dark green hair that was in a bandana. Oh? Oliver, welcome home, darling, said the lady. She then caught sight of the girl hiding behind Oliver. And who is your friend? Hey mom, this is Luca, and I told her she could stay with us for a while because her dad is not on the island and her mom died today. When he finished his phrase he turned around slightly and patted her on the head. Oh dear. I'm so sorry to hear that, said the lady as she ran up to Luffy Luca and gave her a hug. Luffy sniffled. Are you gonna be my new mommy? The lady smiled. Only if you want me to be. My name is Makino, you can stay here, as long as you like. Luffy smiled shyly and moved back over to Oliver. She is a bit of a shy mom. Give her some time to warm up to you. Makino smiled kindly. She sure is cute. Can she sleep with you tonight? I'll need to put a bed together for her, but it is getting to be too late to do that tonight. Oliver grumbled. I guess. He then went to give Makino a hug. This perverted kid is gonna sleep with Luca. Why I oughta. Shut up, Sanji. I'm trying to watch this. Besides, it looks like Luffy won't let go of him anyways. Hi Nami Swan. Sanji said while doing a noodle dance. Luca, get off of me, I want to hug my mom goodnight. Luca then wandered off into a corner of the bar, sat down, put her head in between her knees, and started shaking. Captain Sen seemed rather broken at that point in her life. Robin commented absently, and Usopp and Chopper nodded in agreement. Oliver hugged Makino, and then walked over to Luca. Come on, let's go to bed. I'm okay. Luca, you need sleep. I'll sleep here, it's okay. Oliver sighed. Luca, I won't let you do yourself harm, come up to bed with me. Luca's head flew up. How did you do? He shrugged. Lucky guess. Luffy thought about it for a while before slowly nodding, and got up, grabbing Oliver's hand, and going upstairs with him. When they got upstairs Luca saw a small bed that looked like it barely fit Oliver, much less both Luca and Oliver. Are you sure this will fit us both? Luca asked, suddenly unsure. Yeah, you can just sleep on top of me. Look. Oliver pried his hand away from Luca, climbed into bed, and turned his body at an angle, so that Luca could rest her head on his chest, and curl against him. Okay, Luca said before slowly moving over, and climbing into bed. After a few minutes she was fast asleep. Or at least Oliver thought she was fast asleep. Geez Luca, you are such a pain. Oliver said with a grunt before smiling at her. But I can tell. You are just like me. The next morning Luffy got up, and grabbed a new shirt and pants, and she stared at Oliver while she changed. I'm just like him, huh? She then went downstairs, and saw Makino. Excuse me miss. Makino looked up, and smiled. Ah. Good morning Luca. How are you? I'm a little hungry. Makino smiled, and turned, made a sandwich, and gave it to Luffy. Here you go. I'm going to the store to buy firewood, the last of it is in the fire. Luca nodded. After a few minutes of slowly eating Luffy heard Oliver yell, Luca. After hearing him panic around Luffy turned, and saw him run down the stairs. Oh thank Kami. He mumbled before he spoke louder, and said good morning Luca. Did you sleep well? Luffy smiled. Yes. But you lied. What? Last night you lied. How can you tell? I'm special. Oh, yup. Spill. Oliver looked away slightly. My mom died 2 months ago, on my birthday, but I always thought of Makino as a second mom, so I asked to live here for a bit. Been here ever since. Luca's eyes were wide. I am sorry I didn't know. She blinked hairs away, shook her head, and smiled her beaming smile at him again. Oliver also smiled. No problem. Where is mom? She went to the market. Said that the last of the firewood is in the fire. Oh, want some of my sandwich? Luca finally said, and held up half of a PB&J sandwich. That's okay, but thanks. Hey, I've gotta go back to the forest today, I'll see you later. Luca's eyes widened. You're leaving me alone. Oliver blinked. Yes. I'll be back in a bit. Luffy looked at her food, before looking back at him. Let me go with you, I need to get my apples, and I want to get something from my house. Please. Luffy said, with the cutest puppy eyes ever. Oh she is, Nami said, impressed. Oliver fiddled for a minute before signing, and agreeing. Luffy cheered, and followed him closely. After 5 minutes of walking Luffy jumped on his back. Hey. He said. Luffy giggled. Carry me. I'm tired. We have only been walking for 5 minutes. Oliver yelled, clearly annoyed. But I want Oliver to carry me because I like touching him. He is warm. Why you? Please. Oliver crumbled like a cookie. Fine. Stupid cute 4-year-old face. I like him, he acts like Zoro. Chopper exclaimed, only to get a death glare from Zoro. Haha just kidding. Chopper said sweating buckets. After a moment he just curled deeper into Robin's arms. Protect me. Robin laughed. How did you know I was 4? Luffy said cutely. Because you have a 4-year-old face. What? Never mind. How old are you? I'm 5, turning 6 next month. He said proudly. Oh? Cool. Oliver then grinned, grabbed Luffy's legs, and took off on a run. Luffy said laughing with glee. After about 10 minutes of this he put Luffy down. You sure are light. That's probably because I don't eat enough. What? Luca teared up slightly. Mama had bad men come to take our food every week. But look Oliver said with a sigh. Please don't call me that, that is a girl's name. Oliver looked surprised. So what? You're a girl, right? Luffy sighed. Girls are weak. Oliver looked insulted. Girls are what now Luca? Girls are really strong. Look, Luffy said in the firmest voice they had heard yet. I don't like the fact that I am a girl, and besides, my mom and dad are the ones that called me Luca. It is a special name that only the people close to me can call me. Oliver sighed. Alright, from now on your name is Luffy. So instead of Luca the queen of the pirates, I'm Luffy the king of the pirates. Alright, whatever, I am going to consider myself special, and just keep calling you Luca, but feel free to tell other people your name is Luffy. Luffy sighed, but nodded nonetheless. Let's go back to my house then. Oliver nodded, and followed Luffy through the forest to a small clearing. In the clearing was a small house with 2 doors. There were art supplies everywhere, bows and arrows scattered around the yard, and on one of the doors was a dagger, stuck in the wood. Luffy walked away from Oliver over to a bow on the far side of the clearing, picked it up, grabbed a handful of arrows, and aimed them at Oliver. Whoa whoa whoa. What are you doing? Oliver said, clearly panicking slightly. Instead of responding, Luffy's eyes narrowed, and she shot all 4 of the arrows at once. None of them hit Oliver. But Oliver was cut off by Luffy rushing up to him, and shoving him to the ground. Luffy was then bit in the arm by a snake. Damn it. Too slow. Luffy cursed. She then rolled over, and shot the snake in the head. What the? Luffy stood up quickly, and started sucking blood out of her arm. After a minute of this Luffy took her bloody arm away from her mouth. I am gonna die if this is not treated. Run into the house, and grab the purple bottle that is under the larger bed. Oliver ran inside, panicking, and then slowly the image faded away. Luffy had fallen into unconsciousness. Ivankov was sailing back to Luffy's ship. Darn, I can't believe I forgot my first mate on that island. When he and his crew get there is no sound other than the rocking of the ship. What the Mugiwara boy? Ivankov jumped onto Thousand Sunny looking for Luffy, just to see a girl with long flowing black hair, a refined face, and a straw hat on her head. She seemed to be napping with a book on her lap. Ivan jumped in front of the girl, startling her out of her nap, and yelled, "Who are you, and what did you do with Mugiwara boy?" Gummy blinked. "Oh, it's just you." Gummy then proceeded to try to go back to sleep, for she rarely had time to do so with all of Luffy's activity. Ivan tried to rush her, but the gummy vanished. Well, that was not very nice. "Now, I won't hurt you because Lucas-sama likes you, but I don't like you, so you should leave." "Who are you?" Ivan said with narrowed eyes. "I'm Gummy, but you can call me Gum." "Where's Mugiwara boy and his crew?" "Exploring." "Exploring what?" "Sai, you are bothering me." Gummy then stretched out her arms, grabbed Ivan's ship, and threw it. She then proceeded to grab Ivan and the two other crewmen who made it on board and threw them at the ship. And good riddance. Gummy yelled before sitting down to nap and informed Luffy and the crew of this turn of events. Luffy was sitting, thinking about her past with Oliver. "Wow, I'm an idiot," she said blandly, remembering what happened with Oliver and the snake. "I could have died." She then burst out laughing. "But I'm glad I did not. Never would have gotten to meet Shanks and the gang otherwise." Luffy then went into a fit of giggles and started to think about what happened when she woke up from the snake bite. The Mugiwaras watched as Luffy sat up on a couch with no one in the vicinity. "Where is that Oliver kid?" Zoro rumbled, concerned for his captain. Apparently Luffy was thinking the same thing because the first thing she said when she sat up was, "Oliver?" Luffy threw herself to the floor and yelped. "Oh my arm!" Then an image of Oliver bleeding and dying on the forest floor because of the snake's mate popped into her head, and she started sobbing. "Oliver? Oliver?" She forced herself to stand up despite the headache and pain in her arm, and she hobbled to the door, and just as she was about to reach it she fell to the floor. Her dizziness and pain in her arm was impossible to ignore. So even, as a kid, Luffy's first priority was her friends. Nami said, as she felt Luffy's frustration and despair swell. Luffy sobbed on the floor, and just as she was about to give up, Oliver ran in with Makino close behind. "Luka," he yelled, as he dropped to his knees and lifted her up. "You should have stayed on the couch. Moving makes the poison spread faster." What she said, anger replacing the sadness. She shoved him away and staggered to her feet. "That breed of snake travels with the mate. You should have just run into my house and stayed there, not gone to get help. You could have died." Oliver jumped to his feet as well, ignoring Makino as she moved to work on Luffy's arm. "I could have died. You would have died if I had left you there. I did it for you. You idiot. I killed that snake to save your life. I could have just walked inside and left you to your fate, but I didn't, and then you ran off to get yourself killed. What kind of a repayment would that have been?" Oliver growled, clearly letting his pride get the better of him. "I could have taken on a snake any day." "Oh yeah, prove it." Luffy then let out a yelp as Makino tightened her bandage. "A little warning will that be nice," Luffy rumbled. "That is enough," Makino said firmly. "I'm sorry," Luffy said, feeling guilty. "Beautiful lady," Sanji said, doing his noodle dance. "Shut your trap, crap cook." "What did you say, idiot swordsman?" "Watch Luffy," Oliver said, ignoring Makino. "I'm going to be a great fighter. I'll deal with swords and be a master. Maybe even the greatest." "Okay, now the similarities are a little scary," Nami said, surprised. "Zoro did this time." "Why, that little brat, the greatest, huh? We'll see about that. If you can beat one of the black men with a sword, then you can be my first mate on my pirate crew. It's a deal," Oliver said, before spitting on his hand and holding it out. Luffy looked slightly confused, but copied him nonetheless. "Deal." Oliver shook her hand and smiled as she wavered. Now that her anger had worn off, she clearly needed rest. "I'll carry you back home. Unless you want to stay here," Oliver said, looking around at Luffy's old house. "No. This is a special place that I can only come to on rare occasions," Luffy said, as she threw her uninjured arm over Oliver and started to fall over. Oliver picked her up and slid her onto his back. "I'll take you home with me then." Oliver then walked Luffy back to the bar. Luffy woke up, bigger than before, and in a bigger bed, snuggling with Oliver. Shy, Luffy giggled. She sat up and all but jumped on Oliver. Wake up, I'm turning 6 today." Oliver groaned before nodding. "Your gift is coming later, now get out of my bed." "But you said I could sleep with you tonight because today is my birthday," Luffy said. Oliver groaned. "Fine. Come here," he said, holding his arm up lazily. Luffy laughed. "Don't be silly. The black man is coming tomorrow, you need to train all day." Oliver groaned, getting ready to cover his head when Luffy ripped away the blanket and threw it to the floor before tackling him. "Oof." Oliver grunted. Fine, I'm up." "Eh?" Luffy said, running down the stairs to get her pancakes. When she got there was a note on the table. "Dear Luffy, I'm sorry I can't be here today, but I have stuff to do. I will see you this evening. Love you, Makino." Luffy sobered up. Darn it. Oliver stumbled down the stairs. "Blue, I'm tired." Yeah, Luffy shook her head and ran over to Oliver, attempting to tackle him, but he slid to the side. "No," Oliver said before walking over to the door and flinging it open. "Time to train." Luffy sighed and followed Oliver outside. They went to a place in the forest that had a wide open space. All at once Oliver spun around with a punch aimed at her face. Luffy gasped and jumped backwards, but tripped on a stone and fell on her butt, and the next thing she knew Oliver had a dagger at her throat. Luca, I know you are better with a bow and arrows, but you need to get better at hand-to-hand combat. Luffy sighed. I know, but I like the bow and arrow better. Now that I think about it, I don't think Luffy has ever seen a bow and arrow when with us. I wondered what would happen, Yusuf said, but he was ignored because of what happened next. Got you? A tall man dressed in black said while scooping Luffy into his arms. Oliver, help. Oliver jumped back grabbing his sword from the rack behind him, as well as a number of knives. Kid, if you try anything I will slit her throat. No. Luffy screamed. Oliver growled, and saw that the man had a hand holding onto Luffy near the neck, and made eye contact with Luffy, who had slowed in the struggling, and raised her hand, slowly tapping just below his hand. Oliver, if you hit me it is no biggie, I will have been killed by a close friend, and not some jerk. Oliver looked conflicted. After a few moments, he lifted his hand, threw the knife, and hit the guy in the hand. The man in black threw Luffy to grab his hand, and Luffy was flung to the ground. Luffy yelped as she hit the ground. She then started crawling to get her bow, because her leg was not responding. Just a little longer Oliver, hold them off till I can get my bow. But by the time Luffy had an arrow notch they were out of her range. No? Luffy said, her head falling, as she sobbed. I should have tried harder. But then Luffy lifted her head with a determined look in her eyes. No, I will get him before they leave. Zoro adopted a grin. That's my captain. Luffy was sliding down a hill on her back toward the seashore. I'm coming Oliver. She slid over to the right, and flew off of a small ledge landing on her injured leg. Ow. She yelped, and then fell on her face. Oh, this is not going to be easy. She groaned with her face in the dirt. She then climbed to her feet, and limped, as fast as she could, over to the cliff face that overlooked the seashore, and saw that the boat was still docked. Jackpot, she whispered, as she aimed her bow and arrow, and shot the guy who had Oliver over his shoulder in the butt. She watched as he threw Oliver to the ground, and screamed, asking for his crewmates to help, but was ignored in favor of catching the escaping boy. She watched, as the hoods flew, and they all were bald. Each of them had a strange tattoo that looked a lot like a bear paw, with only 3 finger-like things. How strange. She eyed them, as they fought, shooting arrows here and there. After a few more minutes of fighting Luffy was aiming a shot, and, as she fired a branch fell on her throwing her aim off, and she shot Oliver in the eye. No. She screeched, throwing herself over the edge of the cliff, and smashing her head on a rock. Her vision slowly faded out, and she fell into unconsciousness. Luffy? Zoro yelled, unconsciously trying to go help along with the rest of the crew. We can't help her, this is a memory after all. Zoro growled, and slid back into a relaxed position. Luffy woke up in Oliver's bed. Thank Kami it was a dream. She hummed, and pulled herself out of bed. She slowly lugged herself downstairs looking for Makino. Maki knew it's my birthday. Luffy slurred out, looking for Makino. When Luffy got to the bottom of the stairs she saw Makino crying at the table, and immediately jumped to attention. Makino? She said sweetly running up behind her, and putting her hand on Makino's back. He's gone Luffy. Makino cried out. Luffy looked surprised. Who? Oliver? Suddenly images of what happened that morning flashed in front of them, and Luffy fell to her knees. He's gone she said blankly. Makino got out of her chair, and hugged Luffy. It's okay Luffy, he will always be with us. Luffy shook her head, and stood up, shaking her head. I am okay. And you can call me Luca again, I don't mind. Makino looked surprised. But Luffy, isn't that name special to you? Luffy noted, tears in her eyes. Yes, but I want at least one person to remember my real name, even if it's not me. Makino teared up, and started crying again. Oh Luca. She said, hugging Luffy tighter. Luffy laughed a sad laugh that slowly morphed into a cry of despair, and Makino sobbed herself to sleep. After crying for a bit longer Luffy shook her head. I will become strong. I will be queen of the pirates. Luffy then lifted Makino, and slowly carried her on her back up the stairs. I huff will huff make it. Luffy ran up the last 3 steps with a burst of energy, and flopped on the floor, Makino still on her back. After resting for a minute she brought Makino into a large room with a dresser, and a medium-sized bed in the middle, and a few images of her, Makino, and Oliver laughing. Luffy's eyes swelled, and she brought Makino to the bed, and laid her down. You're heavy. Luffy pouted, before running downstairs to train. While training Luffy was something moving in the bushes, immediately she was on guard. She grabbed her bow, arrows, and a short sword, then remembered what Oliver said about her sword skills. His voice filled the heads. You suck with swords Luca, go for the fists. Luffy's eyes brimmed again, but she shook her head, and ran after the thing in the bushes. After a few minutes of running she found a girl who looked a lot like her. Hi Luka-sama. I wanted to come meet you. Luka-sama. Luffy yelped, and jumped back when the strange girl tried to move closer. Don't come any closer. She hissed, and aimed her bow, before an image of Oliver popped into her mind, and the arrow she shot into his eye. Not now Luca. She tried it herself, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not get her hands to stop shaking, and before she knew it the girl was standing next to her. Luka-sama. Luffy screeched and jumped back, throwing her bow to the floor and covering her head. Not any closer. The girl jumped slightly in shock before gently rubbing Luffy's arm. It's okay, I'm here to help. Luffy sobbed lightly before starting to gather herself up. Don't. Luffy looked up at the girl. Who are you? Don't worry, and don't hold in your feelings. Doing that will make you sick. Oliver would be upset if he knew you were making yourself sick. Yak no, I think that is Gummy. Nami said, trying to dry the small flow of tears that had formed. Then Gummy is the cause of Luffy's lack of filter. Yusuf said, trying to use anger to wash away the sadness that came from Luffy's sadness. I don't think that one encounter could turn Luffy into a good Luffy. Luffy teared up and sobbed into the girl's arms. Gummy softly hummed a lullaby, and after maybe an hour Luffy stopped crying and just spoke quietly. He was my best friend, my only friend. The other kids don't like me much, the townspeople think I'm a freak, and I don't know why. Luka-sama. Don't call me Luka, my name is Luffy. She smiled. Luka-sama, I am going to be your best friend soon, I think that calling you Luka will be okay. Luffy hiccuped slightly. Who are you anyways? I'm Gummy, but my friends call me Gum, and most people call me Gum Gum Fruit. There's no doubt now, Yusuf said, tears flowing despite his best efforts. Gum? Luffy said cutely, forgetting to some extent about Oliver. Yeah. I'm Gum. I like Gummy better. Gummy smiled. Then call me Gummy. Luffy smiled and stood up. So, you are gonna be my best friend. Yes, but I need to leave soon. Luffy looked down. Oh, or I could stay here. I'll find my fruit and bring it here for you to eat. Luffy smiled. Do that, okay? I don't know if this will hurt because I have never done it before. Even if it hurts I don't care. I just don't want to be alone anymore, okay? Gummy then walked into Luffy. Luffy yelled, falling to the ground. It hurts. Do you want me to leave? No? Luffy yelled, and after what felt like hours, the pain stopped. We are one. Luffy was surprised. Where are you? I'm inside you. I'm a part of you, and I won't leave until you die. Luffy fell into a grin. Sweet. I can hear your thoughts and access your memories, so no need to speak out loud. Wait, so if I'm thinking you can hear me? Luffy thought. Correct. But I won't respond unless you think of my name or I have an idea. Okay? Luffy shook her head and started walking, thinking about all that happened in the last few hours. The memory paused. Luka-sama. Gummy's voice flooded the room. Yes? Luffy yawned out. Your Ivankov friend stopped by. I kinda threw him off the ship. You did what? Luffy's voice flooded the room so loud that Nami, Yusuf, and Chopper actually covered their ears. I'm sorry. He went after your body, and I couldn't just let him beat us up. Luffy sighed. You have got to be kidding me, please say you are kidding. I'm sorry Luka-sama, I expect you to go find her. And, are you sure you can't turn me back into a boy after what Ivankov did? Yes, I'm sure. Alright, get to work. Yes, ma'am. After a few moments the memory came back. So you can turn me into a boy. Luffy wiped out loud in the middle of town square. Please stop yelling Luka-sama, and yes I could. What I don't understand is why you would want to be a boy. Sorry I want to be a boy because Luffy's thoughts trailed off, and an image of her mother popped into her mind. I see, yeah. And after that the memory faded out. Are we out of time? Nami said, slightly surprised. Yes. Gummy's voice filled the hallway. I'll pull you out now. They felt a strange pulling sensation, and then they were back on Sunny, sprawled along the grassy deck. Okay, Gummy said. Questions. How did Luffy switch the wounds that Zoro had onto himself? Chopper immediately asked. You see, after Luka-sama ate the fruit that I live in she got an old power that I used to have, only the people who have conquerors who eat me get it. So, does he take all of our pain? Does he have super healing powers? That makes her food into energy, so she needs to eat an incredible amount to sustain life, at least 3 times what a normal person needs to eat, and that alone is just to live, but she fights such big battles with you guys, so she needs to eat at least double what she normally eats, plus the way she always needed to fight for her food when she was little probably did not make that any better. Chopper said interested. So, the more he eats the faster he heals. Correct. Gummy said. Any other questions? Gummy then asked with a stare at Zoro, but before he could say anything Nami spoke. So, do all devil fruits have someone like you in them? Gummy looked at Nami, and nodded. Yes. Most of them are kinder than me, and like to improve, but I let Luka-sama do all the work in exchange for me spitting off to watch you guys a lot of the time. Like over the 2 years you guys were separated. I took my time checking up on each of you. Nami, Yusuf, Chopper, Brooke, and Frankie teared up. Luka cares about us that much. Nami said quietly. Her brother had just died, and all she was worried about was our safety. Yup. Gummy said, popping the peanuts. Why does Luka not use a bow and arrow anymore? Yusuf said, trying to shake out of his previous thoughts. Because she shot her best friend in the eye and killed him. Yusuf could not stop himself, he burst into tears. Gummy smiled a small smile, nodding to Yusuf. It's okay Yusuf, relax. Next. You can read minds. Robin said calmly. Gummy looked at her, giving her a sour look, and nodded. I can, but I rarely do unless Madame Luka asks me to. So, can you really not turn Luffy back into a boy? Brooke asked. Oh that? No, I'm the one who turned her back into a girl in the first place. She needs to get over the entire I'm weak because in the GIRL thing. Gummy said, sounding annoyed. Why Lady Luca won't like that. Zoro opened his mouth, but got cut off by Frankie. So is today Luca's super birthday? Gummy looked slightly surprised. Yes. But she never told you, did she? No, but your day off in the dream was her birthday. Gummy clapped. Good observation skills. Okay, before I get interrupted again. Zoro yells, successfully cutting off all noise. 1. What did you mean about Robin hurting Luca? And 2. Robin and Zoro are probably too stuck on each other to notice. What does that mean? Gummy punched Zoro in the head. It means she likes you, moron. She is jealous of Robin. Zoro fell into silence. Well, my time is up. Gummy said, pointing to the falling sun. See you next year. And then Gummy suddenly got pulled into the captain's quarters. The crew then went to go see Luffy. Hey, Luffy, are you okay? Luffy rolled over and blinked up at Sanji. Sanji, Luffy piped in a cute high voice. Zoro growled lightly in the background, which made Luffy look over, and Zoro, and everyone else. Luffy said before sitting up and rubbing her eyes. I'm tired. Carry me, she said with a puppy face and baby hands. Zoro sighed. But this is your room. Oh, I know. Luffy said before getting up and stretching. I'm hungry. Sanji. Food. Sanji looked like he wanted to yell at Luffy like he normally does, but seemed to be having an inner conflict. Fine. I'll make you a snack. Sanji then stormed off into the kitchen. That was weird. Luffy said nonchalantly, before jumping on Zoro. I'm bored. Zoro grunted. Alright, let's work out then. Luffy pouted. Fine, I'll play with Usopp. Luffy then ran outside, with the following, leaving Zoro alone to think. This is going to be a long hard ride, I can already tell. Zoro then walked out of the captain's quarters, walked over to the ladder, climbed the ladder, and lay down on the bench to sleep, and think about the news that Gummy had delivered to him. Luffy ate just as much as she usually does, and fell asleep in the kitchen, only to be awoken by Nami. Luffy, it's time to go to bed now. She moaned out, before lugging herself out of the chair, and trotting over to the railing, flipping over it, and landing on her head. Ow. Nami sighed. Come on, don't be a moron, Robin, and I wanna sleep, you know. Luffy rubbed her head, now much more awake. Why would I affect how you and Robin sleep? Well, you're a girl now, so you should sleep with other girls. What? Luffy roared, clearly not liking that idea. I want you to sleep with us. Nami yelled, annoyed. No? Luffy yelled, becoming panicked. Come here, you. Nami yelled, running at Luffy like a raging lion. Luffy yelled, and ran into the crow's nest. Zoo. She then curled into a ball behind him. Protect me from Nami. She's gonna kill me. Ha. Zoro groaned out, instinctively throwing his arm over her head just as Nami came in. Zoro. Tell Luffy she needs to sleep with girls now. Zoro groaned. Yeah, whatever. What? Luffy yelled. You can't do that. Luffy teared up slightly before shaking it off. Zoro. You can't let her take me there. Zoro, who was now much more awake, had Gummy's words flow through his head. It means she likes you, moron. Zoro then looked down at the puppy facing Luffy, who was cowering under his arm. Help me, Zoro, she whispered under her breath, in the hopes that Nami would not hear her. Zoro blushed slightly, and turned away. Alright. He responded in a low tone before raising his voice to talk to Nami. How about a compromise? Luffy can sleep in the captain's quarters. What? Luffy cried, only to be ignored. With 2 people. Nami considered this. Alright. But one of them will be Robin. Luffy wrinkled her nose. No. Nami looked at Luffy, before realization dawned on her. Oh yeah, I forgot, it's your time of month, alright, 2 people, whoever you want. But in her head thought about what Gummy had told them. Luffy sighed. I still don't understand why I can't just sleep with the other boys, but fine. Zoro, and Chopper. Nami sighed. I'll go tell Chopper, get everything ready with Zoro please. Luffy nodded slightly, but she seemed to be falling asleep already. Zoro smiled down at her, and ruffled her hair. You want me to carry you to bed, Lu? Luffy nodded slightly. Zoro lifted her onto his back, and slowly climbed down the ladder. Once on the deck he moved her into his arms, and carried her into the captain's quarters, where there was one large bed. Zoro blushed, and laid Luffy down in the bed, before going, and sitting on the couch, waiting for Chopper. Hey Zoro, hey Luffy. Chopper said, walking in a few minutes later. He then saw Luffy on the bed, and lay down with her. He was out in seconds. After watching Luffy and Chopper sleep for a few more minutes, Zoro faded off into oblivion. It was late, maybe 2 or 3 a.m. when Zoro woke. Why did he awoke? He was not sure. Zoro attempted to sit up, only to have a weight on his chest hold him down. What the? He looked to see that Luffy had at some point in the night climbed onto the couch with him. He shook his head softly, and smiled, before looking around the room. What woke me up? He shrugged before attempting to go back to sleep. After his 3rd attempt at rolling over, he knew something was wrong. He carefully slipped out of Luffy's grasp, and walked out of the room. He scanned the deck, and nothing seemed out of place, so he checked the men's room, the underdeck, Frankie's workshop, Yusuf's workshop, the galley, the aquarium, and the weapons room. Nothing. Finally he shrugged, and went to grab a bottle of booze from the galley, and just as he was reaching out to open the galley door, the door to the captain's quarters flew open, and Luffy ran to the side of the ship sobbing and coughing. Zoro stared at her, surprise all over his face. He watched as she stood up a little straighter and wiped her face before attempting a grin, and that was when Zoro broke out of his trance and stalked over to Luffy. Luffy? Luffy swiveled around, shocked on her tear-stained face. Zoro. She went back to the attempted grin. Why are you up so late? Luffy, if you are sad or scared you should let it out. I'm the only one awake, and we are in no danger, I just patrolled the ship. Luffy teared up again, and threw herself into his arms, and started crying. After a few minutes Zoro lowered Luffy and himself onto the deck. Care to tell me what's wrong? Luffy looked at Zoro, and slowly nodded. I had a dream about an old friend of mine, his name was Oliver. Zoro nodded, but his insides twisted slightly with jealousy. Stop being a moron, Zoro, get it together. He had been caught by the celestial dragons, and so I killed him. I killed him. Luffy broke down into little sobs. How did you kill him? I thought he had been captured. If you got close enough to kill him, why didn't you just let him go? It's my dream I could use a bow and arrow. Luffy explained softly. I'm sorry for getting your shirt wet, Zoro. Bet. She finished softly with a small glance up at him. Zoro smiled. Of course you. He carried her back into the captain's quarters and laid her down on the bed, and just as he started to stand Luffy grabbed him with lightning-fast reflexes. Stay with me please. Zoro blushed slightly, but nodded and laid down next to her. She snuggled into his arms. Thanks for everything, yawned Zoro. And she drifted to sleep. Zoro smiled at the sleeping girl. Tomorrow is the day. And he fell asleep with a small smile. Luffy awoke the next morning to Robin sitting in the corner of the room with Zoro. Zoro had a huge blush on his face, and was speaking. Like you a lot. Luffy's eyes burned, and she threw herself out of bed, running out the door sobbing with the surprised Chopper in her arms. Zoro looked where Luffy had just run. Luffy, then it clicked. Shit. Luffy. He leapt out of his chair running out the door, while thinking about what had happened that morning. Flashback. Zoro had awoken with Luffy in his arms, totally content, when Robin came in, and walked right to the bookshelf. So Zoro-san, have you told her yet? Zoro slowly slipped away from the sleeping Luffy. No. Robin gave him a sly smile. For shame. Care to practice? Zoro blushed. I suppose. Robin sat down with the book in her lap, and did a near-perfect imitation of Luffy's female voice. Haizio Aru Wachidoin. And then she proceeded to hold in giggles. Whether they were fake or not Zoro could not tell. Luffy, I need to tell you something important. I like you a lot. Then flashback. Zoro ran out, and his head swiveled around the deck looking for Luffy and Chopper. A voice flooded his head. It was Gummy. You idiot. What did you think would happen when you climbed out of bed? I'm sorry, she is usually a very heavy sleeper. You're why she was asleep at all. At that point Zoro swore he got punched in the head again. Zoro was just about to run off, and look when Nami called everyone to the front of the ship. Damn, Zoro shook his head, and recomposed himself, before walking to the front of the ship, resting his hand on the hilts of his swords. Everyone was at the front of the ship, with Luffy at the front, and Sanji where Zoro usually stands at Luffy's left, Nami on her right, Frankie in between Sanji and Nami, and everyone else scattered around. The one-eyed pirates are going to pass by us. We need to be extremely careful. They are known for destroying other pirates, and they never attack the innocent. Nami said looking at a wanted poster. The captain has a bounty of $500 million berry. Luffy nodded, still holding Chopper. She looked over at the ship. Its mast was a bluish-gray color with a white skull with a scar around the left eye. The boat itself was mostly green, but there were patches of a golden yellow in strips. They watched as the ship got closer, and just as the head started to pass Luffy yelled, scaring all her other crewmates. Hey. She yelled. How are you doing? Nami's face is pale. Luffy, you're an idiot. On the other ship there was movement, and all the Mugiwaras got ready, save for Luffy, for an attack, only to be surprised. Hey. A girl who was a bit taller than Luffy with long light blue hair, and was in capris, and a t-shirt jumped onto the head of her boat, and waved. I'm doing great. Wanna come aboard? Nami jumped in front of Luffy. Are you captain? The blue-haired girl blinked. No. I'm first mate, but I might as well be captain, he is a moron. Luffy laughed. I like you. But she then sobered up. But I want to meet you, captain. Sanji. Bring me the best rum we have. Sanji blinked, but nodded, and ran off to get the rum. The girl watched Sanji leave. So are you captain correct? The girl said, looking back at Luffy. Luffy sprouted a grin, as she stepped forward. I am Monkey D. Luffy, and I'm going to be king of the pirates. The girl laughed. You are pretty cool. I'm Hilda, and I plan on spreading joy everywhere I go. So, was he your first mate? She said pointing to where Sanji was walking back. Luffy looked at Sanji, and pointed. You mean Sanji? Yeah. Shishishi. No. That's Zoro. Luffy turned her body to where Zoro would normally be standing, and then saw him hanging back, and then remembered what she heard when she woke up, and a small tear tried to build up on the side of him. She shook her head, and pointed at him before turning back to Hilda. That's him. Luffy watched, as Hilda looked him over, before smiling. He looks strong, but do you think he could beat me? Without a second's hesitation, and just as Sanji came back, Luffy said, other than me, Zoro is the strongest we have on the crew. What? Sanji yelled. Zoro smirked. Take that love to cook. Why you shitty mar? Sanji the rum. Luffy snapped. Sanji growled, but handed Luffy the rum. Now? Luffy said, turning to Hilda. I want to meet you, Captain. Bring him to my ship. Hilda nodded, and ran off yelling something about dropping anchor. We need to drop our anchor, and furl the sails. Nami said, before roaring orders. After a good 5 minutes, Hilda came back holding a large bottle. Sorry I took so long, here is our rum. She held it out to Luffy, and Luffy nodded, handing her the rum that Sanji grabbed, before giving it to Sanji to save. Luffy then turned. I'm going to take a quick bath. And start walking. Zoro contemplated his options, before deciding that now was the best time to talk to Luffy. Luffy was walking away from the crew. Nami, what do I do now? I feel like I've been crushed. Nami's voice was soothing. Look, Asama, please don't cry. Maybe if you get the whole story from Zoro, you will find out something you did not know. Maybe when he said that he was not thinking about it in that way. Or maybe he was, but he was doing it to practice. You don't know until you ask. Luffy contemplated this, before nodding. Yosh. I will find the truth. She then stopped suddenly, and spun around, only to smack into something. Zoro. She said, surprise, before popping a grin. What are you doing here? I came to watch because you are taking a bath. And then it occurred to Zoro that that should probably be one of the girls' jobs now. Oh, I guess one of the girls should be doing this. Luffy thought about it. Nah, I like Zoro better. Zoro blushed, and looked away, before standing up a little straighter, and opened his mouth to say something, when Luffy cut him off. In fact, Zoro is my favorite person ever. Zoro turned the shade of Luffy's vest. He opened his mouth again, but this time Nami's yell interrupted them. Luffy. Hilda's captain is about to come over. Luffy whooped, and ran off thinking to Gummy. I hope I did not just make a huge mistake. Luffy ran to the deck, Zoro back in his usual position, and grinned, watching, as a shadowed figure came aboard. I am Monkey D. Luffy, and I am gonna be king of the pirates. Who are you? The shadowed figure grinned lightly. King of the pirates. What happened to the queen? Also, really? Luffy is your name now. He flicked his hood off, a huge grin on his scared face. Luffy gaped. He had a defined face, wavy black hair, and a rather large scar around his forever closed eye. What happened to Luca? He said, opening his arms. Luffy teared up. Oh, Oliver. He grinned with a nod. Come here, you. He said, as he grabbed her in a bear-crushing hug. Look at how big your bounty is. Luffy laughed, crying tears of joy. But yours is bigger. That's only because I've been working on it since you shot him. Luffy smacked her hands over Oliver's mouth, before getting really close to his face. Zoro watched this interaction closely, and right when he thought Luffy was going to kiss his ear, he spun away. I don't know about the rest of you, but if Luffy trusts this guy, who are we to judge? I'm going to work out. Before storming off, Luffy looked at Zoro with a grin, before waving. Enjoy your workout. Zoro climbed into the crow's nest, and sat down, watching Luffy and Oliver interact. He watched as Luffy dragged him around the ship. She showed him the galley, she showed him the captain's quarters, she showed him the men's room, and then they sat down in the lawn, seemingly chatting about old times. Zoro sighed. What is wrong with me? And then he began his workout. Luffy was sitting with Oliver chatting about all her crewmates. And we made Frankie join with Robin's powers. What we did was we stole his speedo and, whoa Luffy. TMI. Luffy laughed. Anyways, Robin is really cool. She is calm almost always, and she is really smart and cool. Everyone likes her. Especially Zoro. We didn't make her join, she asked to join. When she joined she did funny things, and gave Nami jewels, and gave me antlers and, I think I got it, Luffy. Zoro really didn't like her at the time. He was mad at me for a long time about that. She said, completely ignoring his comment, and ended her phrase sadly. Okay. Who did you get before Robin? I got Chopper. He is a cute fuzzy doctor that I love to snuggle. We got him on an ice island, and I tried to eat him. Oliver popped a vein, and punched Luffy in the head. You moron. You don't try to eat people. I thought he was a raccoon dog. Luffy yelled, punching Oliver right back, with shark teeth. But you don't eat raccoons or dogs either. Oliver yelled, punching Luffy back. Eventually they ended up fighting on the deck. Oliver, how could you say that? Luffy yelled, throwing Oliver into the galley, smashing down the door. I said that you have gotten weaker. You are throwing me with such little force. I have gotten stronger. Stronger than you even. At this point I could beat you in hand-to-hand combat. Never. You'll only be able to beat me with ranged attacks. You ass. At least I'm not a girl. Tears flooded Luffy's eyes, and she grabbed him, throwing him through the wall of the galley into the ocean. Bastard. She sobbed, running to the crow's nest sobbing. Zoro had just gotten out his big weight when he heard a yell, and a bang, before another yell, and then Luffy flew into Zoro at top speed, knocking him into the wall sobbing. Whoa. Luffy. Are you okay? Luffy sobbed harder, and curled into Zoro's chest. Zoro sat awkwardly for a moment, before wrapping his arms around Luffy. It will be okay, everyone is here for you. Luffy sobbed. I want him. Zoro stiffened, and was about to say something when Luffy regained enough breath to keep speaking. Yoni. He became an ass. She said, and went back to sobbing. Zoro growled, and moved to stand, only to be harder. Luffy, if you want me to get him off the ship, then you need to let go. I don't want you to. Please don't leave me alone. She said, having calmed down. Zoro nodded, and hugged Luffy closer, snuggling her. Told you. Gummy hummed to Luffy. Stop being a smartass. Luffy thought, as a reply, before burying her face into Zoro's chest, as far as she could. Luffy awoke with a start. She looked around, and found Zoro lying in bed next to her in the captain's quarters, with Chopper in between her arms. Dummy. Yes, Luka-sama. How long has it been? What do you mean? Since my fight with Oliver. Oh? About that, Luka-sama, you don't think you overreacted a bit? I mean, that came from what would be considered a small argument with usurper Zoro. I dunno, I guess I thought he would have gotten nicer over time. Luffy? Zoro hummed out. Luffy turned to Zoro. Oh. Morning. She chirped. Zoro grinned. How are you feeling? I'm a little tired. I would have guessed that. You cried yourself to sleep a bit after Oliver got here. You missed lunch. Where's Oliver now? Zoro frowned. Oliver is on the main deck. Luffy smiled. Thanks, Zoro. She then climbed out of the sheets with Zoro close behind, and walked outside. The sun was setting, and Luffy could smell dinner in the air. The only people on the main deck were Luffy, Zoro, and Oliver. Hey Oliver. Oliver looked at Luffy, a smile came to his mouth. Hey Luka, I'm sorry about today, I guess I did not expect you to get so mad. That's okay, Nami said. I would get mad at people because of my bleeding or whatever. Luffy said, shrugging it off. Oliver blinked before his face became red. Look at TMI man. Luffy laughed. Sorry. Zoro, you should get to know Oliver. He is really cool, and is like you. Oliver looked at Zoro with a look that looked inviting, but had a dark undertone to it that set Zoro on edge. Yeah, sure. Zoro said, eyeing Oliver warily. Luffy and Zoro sat down, and then Oliver flipped out. Luka, what is that? He said, and he leapt at her, grabbing her shoulders, and looking at her chest. Luffy, who is as clueless as a bat, looks at her chest, and laughs. Oh. You mean my battle scar? Here Lem, and she started to unbutton her shirt until Zoro stopped her. Luffy, girls can't just do that like guys can. What? Why? Because just trust me. But, Nami Swan. Robin Chuan. Dinner time. And all the rest of you bastards too. Sanji yelled, cutting into the middle of the conversation. Food. Luffy roared, running to the galley. Oliver and Zoro watched her leave, and when Oliver got up, Zoro growled. Don't you dare touch my captain again, you ass. Oliver looked at Zoro, a dark gleam coming to his eye. I do believe that is not up to you. And I'd watch my back if I were you. You may be losing your position as first mate soon. Oliver then walked off chuckling to himself. Zoro eyes Oliver before finally going into the galley, only to find Luffy still standing, and Oliver in his seat. Oh? Zoro, will you come eat with me in the captain's quarters? Sure, Zoro said, grabbing a plate of food, and following Luffy into the other room, only to feel a dark aura flood his back. He turned, and saw Oliver giving him a dark look. Luffy opened the door, and when Zoro came in, locked it. Zoro, I have something I have been considering telling you for a long time, and I feel like now is probably the best time. Zoro's heart picked up pace when he heard that, and he sat slightly. You see, I'm kind of a girl. Zoro sighed. Yeah, I can tell. Luffy frowned. No, I mean I'm really actually a girl. I was born a female. Zoro blinked. Then again. Wait, you telling me this? Luffy sighed. You see, there's a person in my head. I've had her with me for a very, very long time. She helps me, and teaches me. She turned me into a boy. Flashback. Well, in that case I suppose. But you must tell someone first, and not everyone can know. I will make you barely change at all, so, as you age you will be slim like a girl, only with male parts. That is, as good as it will get for me I guess. Luka then walked back to Makino's bar, and went to her and Oliver's room, looking sadly at the bed. Okay? She stood in the middle of the room. A bright light flooded the room, and Luffy blinked. That's it. That's it. Wow, that was easy. Luffy then tried to walk, and immediately fell on his face. What? She said out loud, panicked. Relax, Luka-sama, your center of gravity has shifted, try moving around a bit. Luffy nodded, and rolled over, once, twice, 3 times, before accidentally rolling down the stairs, and slamming his head. Ouch. He yelled, only to find that his voice had become slightly higher pitched. It's a boy thing, Gummy said before Luffy even asked. Luffy stood up, and slowly made her way to the kitchen to eat. Then flashback. So yeah, that is how I became a boy. Luffy said. And then Ivankov came, and ruined everything I worked so hard for. Zoro hugged Luffy. For the record, I like you, as a boy or girl. You are still my strong captain, the one I chose to follow. Luffy smiled, and hugged Zoro. Thanks, Zoro. I'm really glad that I can rely on you through anything, and if you don't mind my asking, what was that thing with Robin this morning? Zoro tensed up. Now's the time, Zoro. Zoro was scared. Well, I was trying to work on my courage so that I could admit my feeling for you. Then a huge bang came from outside, and they heard Nami yelling. Zoro grumbled. Seriously. Luffy flew out of Zoro's arms, and dashed out the door, with Zoro begrudgingly following. When they got outside, they saw Oliver withering on the floor. Oliver! Luffy shrieked, and ran to him. Oliver groaned. Luca before he flew into a seat, and hugged her tight. Luca, he said, tears streaming down his face. He pushed her band, and eyed her down. I didn't hurt you, did I? What? Luffy said, completely flabbergasted. Oliver wiped his face, and smiled. Luca, I missed you so much. How long have I been here? A day? Wow. I have good timing. Listen, I don't know how much time I have. What do you mean? She said, becoming concerned. I made a deal with the devil. Remember when we were kids, and our unfortunate incident? I was suffering from an infection and blood loss, but I wanted to see you and Mom again, so I called upon the devil. Watch. Oliver slowly opened his shot eye, and underneath his eyelid was a bright green eye. Whoa. Luffy said, reaching out, but Oliver closed his eyes. This is the eye he exchanged with me. Without it I will die. However, it attracts dark spirits, and they take control of me if they are strong enough. I fought all of them off until the current one. This spirit has some sort of attachment to you, so I have avoided you for the last 2 years, despite really wanting to see you. He takes control, and I can't stop him. I can only hold him off for small periods of time, so I should probably leave soon. Sorry I couldn't be your first mate. Luffy teared up, and hugged Oliver. Stay. We can help. I can't see devils, but I can communicate with them. Oliver hugged Luffy. Alright. But not for long. I don't want to risk your life. Luffy nodded, hugging him tighter. After a tense moment, Sanji spoke up. How would you guys care for some food? Luffy leapt to her feet. Yeah. Food. Food. Requests. Meat. Meat. A salad would be nice, Sanji-kun. I agree with Nami-san, Cook-san. Some super fried rice. Cotton candy. That's a desert chopper. Yusuf said, facepalming. Yo-ho-ho-ho. Tea. Alright. Sanji said before turning on his heel and waltzing into the kitchen. By the way, Oliver, Nami started. You keep calling Luffy Luca. Is there a meaning to this nickname? Before Oliver could answer, Luffy jumped up. No. Personal joke. Let's go, Oliver. I want to catch up with the real you. Before she grabbed his hand and ran to the figurehead of the ship. Nami shared a look with all the crewmates before shaking her head and going to read while waiting for dinner. Robin wandered off to join her, Frankie went to repair something on the ship, Chopper, Yusuf, and Brook went to play, leaving Zoro alone on deck. Zoro slowly climbed up to the crow's nest, walked over to his weight, and crushed it with his fist. God damn it. The stupid freaking Oliver. He just had to show up and ruin everything. He then picked up some of his other weights and started pumping furiously. Oliver. Luffy snapped once they were by themselves. What? Your name is Luca, what's wrong with them knowing? I'm not a girl. Oliver looked her up and down before raising an eyebrow. Luffy sighed, after you died, I mean, when we thought you died, you remember how I didn't like it when you called me Luca? Yeah, because it is a special name. Yes. My devil fruit has a living breathing devil inside that can turn me into a guy. I go by Luffy now. Only old friends like you know my real name. The closest of the close. Oliver frowned. So you are keeping a secret from your family? Luffy frowned, as she nodded. Yeah. But they couldn't help even if they want, Luca. Oliver yelled, cutting her off. Your family is something you lean on. You can't be the strongest all the time. You need to falter, and believe, and trust. If you can't even tell the truth to your own family, how do I know you're not lying to me right now about this big mess? Maybe you made it up to cause drama. Luffy teared up slightly. But girls can't fight. Girls are not strong enough. I don't want or need to be protected. Before they could continue, Sanji cut them off with a yell, Nami SW Robin Cannon. Lunch is ready. The rest of you bastards too. Luffy spun on her heel in an attempt to run to the kitchen, but Oliver acted swiftly and grabbed her shoulders, spinning her back to him and giving her a disapproving look. Luca. How do I trust you if you won't trust me? He shook his head at her as he released her shoulders and went to eat lunch. Luffy stood there for at least 5 minutes, looking and feeling dejected. I can't just completely swing around to be some suckered up girl that needs help with everything. That's just not me. She shook her head furiously as tears began to prick at her eyes. Luffy. He said cutely, are you okay? Food is ready. Luffy looked at Chopper before picking him up and hugging him, her tears flowing freely as she cried. Chopper. She squeezed Chopper tightly as she fell to her knees, causing him to squeak. Whoa. Luffy, are you okay? Hold on, I'll go get Zoro and your lunch. Chopper then swiftly wriggled out of her arms and ran to the dining hall to find the swordsman that he knew could convert his captain. Zoro. Zoro. Chopper yelled, stumbling into the busy dining hall and successfully gaining all attention. He rushed over to Zoro's side and started shoveling food onto a plate for Luffy as he spoke. Luffy is crying by the figurehead. Hurry up, she needs you. Chopper adjusted the plate so he wouldn't drop it as he ran, before dashing back out the door. Zoro moved to stand, but Hilda, who had been trying to talk to him, grabbed his arm. Wait, don't you want to finish our conversation? What? Zoro asked, flabbergasted that after hearing that his captain was crying and needed him she would still try to get him to stay. Zoro felt a huge rage begin boiling in his veins, and out of reflex his hand inched towards his swords. Just as he began to blow, Oliver piped up. Hilda, his captain needs him, let's him go. Hilda grumbled, but released his arm, and Zoro ran outside. He was almost at the figurehead when he heard Luffy talking. That's stupid Zoro. Luffy, Zoro is probably on his way. Look, he will be here any second. Zoro's an idiot. He's probably telling Robin just how sorry he is that he needs to come see me. You should have just left him alone. But Luffy, you know that Zoro cares about you. He trusts you with his life. He follows you like a lost puppy. Luffy sniffled. I know I'm sorry for making you be a mature Chopper, thanks. Zoro stiffened, before Speed walked over to Luffy. Luffy, are you okay? I'm sorry I took so long, that little girl Hilda tried to get me to stay. He said the end of his statement with venom. Luffy looked at Zoro with her tear-stained face, and nodded, before she started munching on the food Chopper brought. Chopper, you can go finish your lunch if you want, I'll take care of Luffy. Chopper nodded, and went to eat lunch. Luffy, what's wrong? She sighed. I guess it's my turn to be protected, huh? Zoro gave her a confused look. She then reached up, and touched Zoro's head. Luffy was sitting next to a small grave on a hill overlooking the sea. Dummy. Luffy said aloud, knowing that she will soon not be able to speak like that. Yeah? When will I get my new ability? The question seemed almost desperate. Dummy sighed tiredly. Whenever my fruit shows up, Luka-sama. Luka sighed, before gently setting her bow over the grave, and laying her arrows in a pile in front of it. Goodbye now. Goodbye arrows. I'm sorry I won't be using you again anytime soon, or possibly ever, but I need to get stronger, I need to become a man, and I need you to protect Oliver. Luka-sama, I truly believe that the best course of action would be to strengthen yourself. As a female, I believe it will make your life easier. No, I will stay male, and I will protect everyone important to me. If you keep up that attitude someday you will be the one who will need protection. Luffy hummed, and began chatting to Oliver's grave. Zoro blinked rapidly. Whoa. That is the second time you have done that. Are you doing it with your second self? Yeah, I guess now it's my turn, huh? Luffy, relax. It doesn't always have to be protect or be protected, you can also just relax. Relaxing is good, and does not require energy. You do not need to always be exerting energy. Luffy grinned, when she saw something behind Zoro, and her eyes widened. Zoro, watch out. She shoved Zoro out of the way just in time to be sliced in the side by a knife. She sat up, pulling the knife out of her side, before swinging her head around, and glaring at a short man dressed in all black, who was standing there holding a few more knives. Luffy. Zoro rushed to her side, before calling out to the crew. Everyone get out here. We have an intruder. The end. Thanks for watching my video, see you next time, till then sayonara.